In 2005, Steve Jobs gave a legendary commencement speech to Stanford graduates. In the speech, he voiced the soundbite, "Love what you do." Since then, it has morphed into its two syrupy cousins, quote, "Do what you love," and, quote, "Follow your passion." Both these cute little soundbites is probably the worst life advice you could ever get and then follow. Why? Well, like most bullshit in life that I love to expose, the truth always comes down to economic reality or mathematics. And the reality is, no one gives a shit about what you love or what your passions are. The only thing people care about is their own selfishness. Selfishness is what you can count on. In business, it's simply called, "What can you do for me?" How does your business make my life easier? If your passion doesn't solve anyone's problems, no one's going to care. And more importantly, no one's going to give you money for it. And sorry, you can't buy your dream house or your dream car with passion. Passion does not pay bills. Moreover, people following passions and loves find themselves in saturated and overly competitive marketplaces. And this creates too much supply, which creates margin erosion. In other words, you can't make a decent living. A good example of this is personal training. Everyone who is passionate about fitness wants to become a personal trainer, which is great, except a gazillion other people are thinking the same thing. If there are 20,000 personal trainers in your city, do you think that's a good business to be in? Passions and loves is bad business advice because it is self-centered, not market-centered. For example, let's say Joe is an expert at martial arts. So following the advice of his favorite gurus and fresh off watching Steve Jobs echoing "Love what you do," Joe sets off to open a martial arts studio in his local neighborhood. At first, Joe is happy and excited. He's following his passion and loves teaching people martial arts. But that happiness and excitement slowly fades away in just a few short months. Why? Well, economic reality and their mathematical counterparts always takes precedent. After 6 months in the business, Joe realizes that not only is he losing money, he is working for free. He simply does not have enough customers to be profitable, and he cannot raise his fees to adequately compensate himself for his time and expertise. If he does, he will lose his existing customers and not attract any new ones. Suddenly, do what you love withers into a grind. And when he can't pay his personal bills, much less his business expenses, it withers into a stress. Worse, his passion for martial arts becomes endangered. Joe isn't running a charity, and his time isn't free. The problem with Joe and millions of other failed entrepreneurs is that he followed the prophetic advice of gurus to follow his passion and to do what he loves, and to do so without an ounce of economic or market analysis. Before Joe started his martial arts business, he should have asked, does this neighborhood need a martial arts studio? Is there something that my martial arts studio will do better than the others? Is there something unique in my concept or offering, think value skew, that will justify higher prices? Is there enough volume in this passion of mine to compensate me for my time and expertise? You see, the marketplace is a very selfish place. And if you approach the market selfishly, you're never going to make money. It's like two magnets that are polarized to each other. Selfish entrepreneurs engage the selfish marketplace, and the economic effect is repulsion. Except in this case, it's not a force repulsion, but a money repulsion. The only way the magnets attract each other is if they are opposite. One is selfish, the marketplace, and the other is unselfish, you, the entrepreneur. So which brings us back to Steve Jobs and his cute little soundbite of "Love what you do." If that's bad advice, was he lying or wrong? And why should you listen to a puny multimillionaire like me versus a billionaire like Steve Jobs? Well, let me say that I'm 100% positive that Steve Jobs actually did love his work. He wasn't lying, and not even necessarily wrong. But let me ask you this. What if Steve Jobs was a consummate failure? Yes, he never got famous and never succeeded at anything. He didn't succeed in his early companies, not with Macintosh, not in building Apple into a billion-dollar business. Nope, he locked himself up in a ghetto garage and built things that no one ever cared about, much less bought. Fail, fail, and fail. You'd think he'd be standing at a podium preaching love what you do years later? You'd think he'd tolerate 40 years of building stuff that no one wanted to buy? That no one could understand or use? You see, Steve Jobs loved what he did because you loved what he did. You found value in his inventions. You loved his work, so he loved what he did. He unselfishly delivered incredible value to a selfish world. So would you love what you do if half the world enjoyed something you created? Of course you would. Which brings us to the main point in this whole video. The key to passion and doing what you love has nothing to do with specific activities, industries, or work. It has to do with the outcome of that work and how it connects your feedback loop. A feedback loop is what happens when your effort yields a positive response from the marketplace. In business, that's usually sales. Or it could be an email that said, hey, great job, or loved your book, or that video changed my life. Positive echoes from action is what drives passion and motivation. You see, if you solve the world's problems, make things easier, and create productocracies, the world will thank you with its money. And that money comes to a connected feedback loop which drives passion and love. So after Steve Jobs changed the world with his iPhone, don't you think he'd feel a little bit of passion and love? Of course. Likewise, when I wrote my first book, The Millionaire Fastlane, I didn't expect much, maybe 1,000 sales or so, but then I can move on and write something else, something that's not related to business. However, when sales continued year after year from my expected 1,000 sales into hundreds of thousands and a boatload of thank yous, my feedback loop fired. Passion grew, and so I continued to write because the market asked for it. So don't do what you love. Do what the market needs and let the market take you where it wants to go. If you're on the right track and the market likes what you offer, your feedback loop will fire motivation, passion, and the love to do what most others won't. Stop following passion and start following the need.